Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the King and Branch Show. We are going to try to do this on a semi-regular basis, do it weekly to bi-weekly, and just be an hour-long episode of biblical news and mythic film. Branch will be doing his Solomon Report thing. I will be doing my esoteric film analysis and discussion on a semi-regular basis here, like I said, week to week or bi-weekly maybe at first, and then we'll be having fun. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to Branch.
It's good to be here. Thank you for hosting.
Yeah. Well, technically we're both hosts here, or it's the King and Branch Show. So every episode is going to have two segments, and the theme for this first episode is Donald Trump and David Lynch. And when we're talking about the current political climate with the branch, with everything that Donald Trump has done since his presidency, and with mine, we're going to do a little memorial discussion, and it's going to be a fun time. We're still testing out some kinks, some technical overview. So this is going to be a pretty bare bones episode, but we're going to keep on growing the show. I'm excited for it. Are you excited for this format, Branch?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
well, that was a good opportunity to meow as well. So yeah, I'll throw a meow in there.
Meow. Yeah. Yeah. So here we go, guys. This is our cold open, the awkward first epilogue that you see on Saturday Night Live and everything. So here we go. We're going to get into Branch's segment with Donald Trump, and I'll go in with David Lynch. It's going to be exciting. Some really amazing stuff. Okay, Branch, what do you got for us?
Sorry, I was on the wrong screen. I was trying to unmute. So we have these two fellas in the news. Maybe we should just take a moment to explain why we chose this dynamic duo. So as you may know, Trump has been elected president of the United States in the year of our Lord 2025, and for a lot of folks, that's been a traumatic thing. I know people personally that have started going to therapy over. I know people that have felt relief because of this happening. I am one of those people. But then I also feel like this is a little too good to be true, right? Like there's a nefarious component to it, perhaps. So, I kind of see what's happening right now as being kind of like a David Lynch movie where there's like always this dark underbelly or dark theme. And it kind of makes me think of the dark MAGA thing. So, I always want to focus on the dark MAGA aspect of things and how we've seen like a cultural shift from the 2016 era of MAGA, which was largely a populist movement, Jacobian, figuring cap wearing, freedom loving people. And you'll find this template all over the world. So in every nation, it's like their nation first, taking back the government, that sort of thing. But then we had that little interlude of 4 years, and a lot's happened since then. And so, my conspiracy mind, my prophecy mind, all that sort of stuff reminds me of how if you want to lead a cow to the slaughter, it will not go straight, right? It will resist you every step of the way. But if you lead that cow in a serpentine motion, you'll be able to lead it straight to the gate without any resistance whatsoever. And I heard somebody say that in a Twitter space recently, and I can't remember who, but that was very profound to me, and it stuck with me. And because I remember feeling like this back when Obama ran, and we're getting all this change and stuff promised to us after the terrible Bush term, all that war and all that, so on and so forth. And did anything really change? Not for the good. So I remember feeling betrayed then, right? And I thought, well, how is this with Trump really any different? Just flipped. It's just here we are again with this hope for change and so on and so forth. And although we have seen a lot of great things happening already, even before he got elected, there's always that poison pill, right? And so we'll be talking about that today. What is the Stargate project, right? The Stargate AI project, and how does that relate to some of the things he was talking about back in 2016? So yeah, I'm going to talk about a few films that might relate to I'll mouse over here. Now this is the OpenAI webpage announcing this. That's a liberal type organization. And anyway, the Stargate project is a new company which intends to invest $500 billion over the next 4 years building new AI infrastructure for OpenAI in the United States. We will begin deploying $100 billion immediately. The infrastructure will secure American leadership in AI, creating hundreds of thousands of American jobs, and generate massive economic benefit for the entire world. The project will not only support the reindustrialization of the United States, but also provide a strategic capability to protect national security of America and its allies. National security of America and its allies reminds me a lot of Five Eyes and that sort of CIA information sharing stuff. So we have to wonder, is this AI behemoth going to be transnational? My theory is that we're working our way slowly toward the beast system. And
this is
going to be part of it.
Yeah, if I may interject here really quick. This is something that we've talked together privately recently within the last year or so, where I talk about and we can get deeper into this idea in a future episode on the channel as well. When you're introducing new technology, there is a certain way to get the populace, the people of your empire, the everyday citizen of your kingdom, to accept the devices that you're giving them, and you do that by introducing your new technology, rolling it out into 3 categories: military/government, entertainment, and health. So medical. And with AI, what are the things that they have introduced AI into? Of course, you have AI in entertainment. We have AI art websites where you can generate your own images or video. I've messed with them. I'm certain that people our viewers have messed with different things like that as well, like Mid-Journey and whatnot. And then it's been used in Hollywood already. The Brutalist movie that's in theaters right now, that's getting heralded as this big epic thing in the cinema. It used AI in its production. Marvel has used it in the MCU. I mean, we've seen it there in health. We're already getting AI in the health wristbands for people when they work out and everything, and in the Apple Watches to monitor your health and everything, your heartbeat, your sleep, your REM waves and your brain waves and all that. So you're seeing AI already in the medical field as well. And now we're seeing it even more with in the government with what you're describing with Stargate. And that's we see that people are accepting it, and there are people in Silicon Valley that are saying that this is going to be the next atomic bomb moment. We just had Oppenheimer, the film Oppenheimer just came out last year, and that big speech Oppenheimer gives, talking about we're welcoming our destruction and our death, and all these things, and second guessing what they had created. And there's that feeling of, are we building our own panopticon for some type of thing that's going to control us, restrict us as sovereign humans. So yeah, I just wanted to add
that's
that
the question, right?
really quick.
And pretty much that you just described basically the plot to Terminator. The plot line is basically that they create what's known as Skynet, and then it's some type of AI defense program that the military has, and the moment it goes online, it basically identifies humanity as the threat and attacks it, and so it's like the genie gets out of the bottle, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good example too.
Isn't that the part of the woke mind virus, is, as they call it, is seeing humans as being the whole kind of liberal agenda is to be anti-human, seeing humans as a plague on the earth to protect Mother Earth and all that as well. And
some people see humans as like something to be eliminated, kind of like when Bill Gates talks about the carbon tax, and we are the carbon they want to eliminate, right? We got to remind ourselves of that too. So
if the AI is feeding off of sorry to interrupt you, I was going to say, if to finish my thought, I was just going to say, if AI is feeding, because AI doesn't create, it's just going to be reading script, right? And what's it reading? It's just going to be reading liberal propaganda, so of course it's going to think that way.
Yeah, exactly, because it's the programmers that give the AI its knowledge, right? So we as humans are controlled by what information we're allowed to consume, and so we're no different in that manner, meaning that we can easily see how bias can occur, right? But let me continue to read just a moment here, because as I mentioned, 2016 earlier, we see that Microsoft, NVIDIA, Oracle, OpenAI are the key initial technology partners. Notice that Elon's companies are not listed there, and he has been distanced from having direct access to Trump since the election has finalized. And now we're seeing all of these new characters step out of the shadows and onto the stage. And one of these that I mentioned was Oracle. Oracle is headed up by Larry Ellis, and he is a CIA asset from back in the 70s. And he is at the helm of that. And basically what that's getting into is, like you mentioned, the Internet of Things. They want to have mass surveillance with this. This is not just about the medical, but also the Internet of Things. So the Alexas, the smartwatches, like you mentioned, your refrigerator in some cases, stoves, thermostats, all of these things that are becoming interconnected through the internet, smart TVs, another great example, so on and so forth. So all of this stuff, security cameras even, we're getting to the panopticon stage, like you mentioned, where humans have created like this cage all around us, this digital prison. And this leads to what in the Bible describes as the charagma, the proof of the mark. So in order to participate in society, you'll have to have this certain, basically proof that you are loyal to the government or whatever. And so I think we're reaching that stage because we're seeing all the components present now, and the convergence of this technology will have AI at its head, right? Managing all the interconnectedness of everything. So we got to remember the CIA is going to be behind this. And also the Five Eyes thing in general is kind of like a cicada reference, because cicadas have 5 eyes. And so we got to remember the locust mark of Revelation, the locust king, whoever's going to be head of this could possibly hold that distinction. And this will be, like I said, a transnational thing. So this is the genie that we're letting out of the bottle. Even Elon talked about how this was like evoking demons and such, and opening up Pandora's box and such. And so maybe this is kind of like the trap that God has set for humanity, is that this spirit, this intelligence. That's what you refer to these spirits as, are intelligences, whether they be planetary or incorporeal spirits, sometimes referred to as geniuses and intelligence. And so when people come up with these devices and inventions, sometimes it's under the influence of these other entities. If you research Jack Parsons, for instance, you can see a lot of similarities between his rocketry program and Elon kind of doing the same thing, almost like he kind of picked up the standard and continued. But in a lot of ways, a lot of the standards have been picked up from Operation Paperclip as well, where a lot of these, what we see today is like, oh, these cool emergent technologies. Well, I think a lot of this actually has its roots back into the 40s, but we're seeing a real big investment since 2016. But moreover, you got to see how this is all connected to and this is a mouthful, but it is the entry exit visa tracking program. Excuse me, I forgot the most important part of that, the biometric entry. And so this was something that Trump was talking about a lot in 2016. And this was basically his idea for how to manage the border by land, air, and sea. Well, that covers all the major domains, right? So again, the panopticon thing comes to mind. So are we going to be seeing these robot dogs patrolling the land? Are we going to see drones patrolling the air? And we already know they have submarine type aquatic drones. So it seems like to me they're covering each of the domains with this drone technology, slowly but surely. And of course, every time you upload a picture to Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be, we're feeding into that algorithm. We're painting that cage around us, so to speak. With each piece of data we give it, we're creating that prison. So you think, oh, I have nothing to hide. I'm not doing anything wrong. See, that's the way you That's the straight path. If they told us what this was all for, we would resist them every step of the way. But the smartwatches, the whatevers, that's the every serpentine motion right and left that we take inevitably ends at that slaughterhouse gate. So we have to understand that, yeah, it doesn't, no one of these technologies on its own maybe spells our doom, but it's when those all converge. So what we're waiting on to see now is how this all connects to the economic element. It's at that point we'll have the full mark of the beast potential, I think. And with the way the government's behaving with XRP and crypto and things like that, I think that's the final ingredient for that, to become a reality, is where we see this, once you have to start paying your taxes in crypto or whatever it might be. Well, what could be the justification for that? Maybe privacy becomes such a big problem. We're always hearing about hacking stuff, right? So like that becomes the reason now why we need biometrics. Why we'll start out being like, oh, we need biometrics because of the border. We got criminals and people coming through. Well, who's going to argue with that, right? But eventually it'll be, well, you need to prove who you are. Or maybe your identity can get hacked or whatever. So the next thing you know, the same technology is being used for other ways, but they introduce it, like you said, first into like entertainment. So we have all these movies about these types of topics, these dystopian movies and stuff. Then they have the medical industry. Well, you're wearing the smartwatch. Maybe they're using RFID medically, so on and so forth. And then military comes last. So I think what they're doing with the border right now is probably a good example of military application. And so once those three stages have been met, it's like now it's all around you and you've been desensitized to it. So the next generations that come up are going to be so saturated with it and used to it that they're not going to see anything wrong with it. And so it's like the cow growing up in the slaughterhouse. If it doesn't even realize it's in the slaughterhouse, it's going to think it's weird for cows to be living out in the pasture. Eventually those cows are going to think it's natural to just be in the slaughterhouse. You see what I mean? So I think we're slowly being conditioned in a way too, by enticing us with the Internet of Things. It kind of lulls us into this false sense of security. And I think that's what the Bible is really talking about too, because it's talking about peace and security. All these things are being offered to us to be like, we're trying to make it safer and more secure, but then sudden destruction comes upon them, right?
Yeah. Which didn't you? Yeah, the Tower of Babel. Didn't you say that they are, as in the Project Stargate, they're going to be trying to do something with helping with solving issues with diseases like cancer?
Yeah, and I think the whole word cancer is interesting too, because that's one of the zodiac signs names. And in Hebrew, cancer was actually the sheepfold gate, where you would take the sheep into. So if you imagine like gathering the sheep and leading them into the sheepfold gate, that would be emblematic of Aries going into Cancer, right? So like the right hand of God is kind of emblematic of that April to June period. Gemini's the arms too, by the way. So yeah, I find that whole word interesting, right? But that's also the keystone of the royal archway in heaven. So like if you imagine an archway built out of blocks, there will be a point in the middle of that arc where the keystone's placed. Well, that is Cancer. So just some little food for thought on the word there. But yeah, there's a movie that kind of goes along with this as well that I'll be talking about. But so when Larry Ellis got up on stage, he's talking about Project Stargate AI. Okay, and one of the applications that they were talking about was, not only will we be able to tell you what type of cancer you're going to die from, But we'll be able to synthesize a anti-cancer vaccine within 48 hours and administer it to you. And well, gee, that's fast service, wouldn't you agree? And you know, I saw a really nice meme yesterday that was showing like a picture of AI created hands, and they were all disfigured. And you know, it's like, well, AI can't even get hands right. How do you feel about putting a vaccine that's made in 48 hours into your body, you know, if it can't even get hands right? And I think that point is the point that really is being made there, even if it wasn't intentional by the meme, is AI cannot understand what it is to be human. We are far more complex, even if it can't understand us in our totality. You know, it can only be used for specific applications, and the people that are applying this application have limited knowledge as well. So I think it creates the open door there for the disaster, the fall of that tower, is and things like that. And so I do have a link for that, actually. The I Am Legend here.
Yeah, something that
the
was
movie
created
I
by
Am Legend
God
featuring
can't
Will
understand
Smith. Speaking
something.
of,
Sorry, go on. I was going to say, yeah, what you're describing is like
the
something that
source,
was
the creation
created.
cannot understand the source.
Yeah, something that was good, like us, who are children of God, and then something that we make, like AI, can't understand our source, because I mean, the whole idea of spirituality and God, and the reason why He created us is to give us the mystery of life, right? And to go on that hero's journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no way uh, anything that we create like AI can understand the beauty of life, that has been given to us. The only way that we can create something that also understands the beauty of life in that divine way is when we procreate and have children.
Yeah. Well, see, I think this is why at the core of all this, what makes it truly evil is that there is the awareness that technology has limitations in terms of a robot is eventually going to break down. A human even breaks down eventually. I think that's why they want to actually combine the human and robot. So I think what we're likely to see here is not actual full-on robots so much as the transhuman thing,
Yeah.
trying to blend them together. And I think that's what we're really seeing happen, because there's now designating people with ear implants, like cochlear implants, to some degree, probably even people with contact lenses or glasses are considered partially cybernetic to a degree. I'm sure in the future it will be when they got like Google glasses or something. But anyway, they're trying to basically already create this designation of how people with prosthetic limbs and hearing aids and things like that are actually already transhuman, right? They're already crossing over that threshold. And I think that with Elon Musk's creation of the Neuralink, we're only going to see more of that. And so that's a good example of what you were talking about earlier with the medical establishment introducing these technologies. Paraplegic is able to, I don't know, reach high rank on Call of Duty now, or whatever they pursue with that new ability. And it's like, oh wow, you know, how impressive. But then eventually it's like you don't have the choice of whether or not you have one or whatever. And so that's kind of where we get into like Brave New World territory and stuff, where people are having to take medications daily to manage their emotions or what have you. So your thoughts getting policed and your speech and so on and so forth. So it's just like when this hits worldwide proportions, that's when we're getting to the New World Order, Babylon type stuff of the Bible, because it's a worldwide phenomenon. And so I see this AI thing really escalating things, because a lot of people, the trap I think that people fall into is a lot of times, oh, it'll never happen in my lifetime. I always want to play it off like everybody thought it was the apocalypse. Well, but we
Yeah.
do have the parable of the fig tree, and the parable of the fig tree frames it in such a manner that we know that there's a particular country that now exists, and that kicks off the timeline. So I think that with us being in those final years of that prophecy potentially, we should really pay attention to things like this that are happening, because now time is not such a big deal. Time is actually happening in technological terms. It's going to happen at such a fast pace now that years get compressed in a sense. And it'll take everybody by surprise, because that net that we're building around us, it'll get cinched up here real quick. And if we're not already aware of it, we get caught up in it, right? Because like, what if tomorrow we had to start, like if the economy crashed tomorrow and the government's like, don't worry, guys, we're going to shift to crypto and everything's going to be fine. And so everybody's relieved, right? Or whatever. Universal basic income. Don't worry, you'll be able to pay your bills, so on and so forth. And, that could start out real benign or something like that. Like maybe there's a bank holiday, and who knows? So, it could even be, it could be just a form of espionage or subterfuge against Trump, or Trump could be in on it all. Who knows? But what was that? I can't remember the name of it now. Mr. Robot. Yeah, there was a crash in that show, and then where the government stepped in and did a crypto thing. So, we kind of, like I said, the entertainment has already seeded that into our consciousness, right? Then you got Fight Club, another very popular movie. Well, what happened in that? All the financial records got eliminated, which is the exact same thing that happened in Mr. Robot. So just a different way. So, I think with this I Am Legend thing in particular, though, because of copyright stuff, we won't show the link, but you can find, if you go on YouTube, you can type in cancer, I Am Legend cancer scene. And you got the inventor of this technology sitting there with having an interview, and she's talking about how they've cured cancer. And then, fast forward back to the movie, and everything has been destroyed and in disrepair because this new wonder drug that they started making everybody take was turning everybody into these weird creatures and mutants and stuff. And see, that's the basis of this, is the mRNA technology, which is experimental. So we really need to, I think we should just be distrustful. I mean, humans need to maintain some wildness, and you know what I mean? This domesticated, passive, trust the government attitude. I was not raised that way, so I feel like that's a blessing. But I just think it's good to have a healthy amount of distrust of the government, especially with what happened in 2019 era. You would think a lot of people learned from that, but I fear that they're going to be taken with the carrot, on the stick, is this cancer treatment stuff, or imagine the lure of designer babies and all this other weird stuff that could start happening, because they're also promoting IVF with the Trump administration. So what abominations could come from all this? Who knows? And because you got to remember too, it could be the administration after Trump that starts doing the really horrific stuff. Who knows? Because they always introduce this thing. The government grows, but it never shrinks, right? So it's like the one president will do things that the other can't get away with. That's the serpentine sway, right? Then the next one, the red-blue paradigm, the right-left paradigm. That's exactly what you do with the Hegelian dialectic of the purple revolutions. You got the red and blue. The purple is the synthesis. That's the Slaughtergate. That's where you want them to end up. The red and blue is just the game you play to get them there, right? So anyway, I don't want to talk forever, but this dark MAGA stuff, I think we need to be wary of, because I think we're starting to see a shift toward the worship of technology. to solve all of our problems. Trump keeps talking about how he's going to solve all the problems. Of course, he didn't solve the war in one day, like he said, but 100 days now, he said, which of course is more reasonable. But just turn off the spigot of funding. I think it would end pretty quick, right? But anyway, we should really just be monitoring the situation as far as prophecies and stuff are concerned. Isaiah 17:1 talks about the desolation of Damascus. We're seeing a lot of hot war over in Damascus area with the Syrian government now gone. So I think that's another prophecy milestone to be looking for. Oh, and one last thing. You showed the clip or the image of Trump holding the dove. So I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw something online about how the seal had been reversed, where the eagle is normally looking to the dove olive branches, or excuse me, that's not a dove, but olive branches, and the claws of the eagle, it's normally looking to peace. But then now the eagle is actually looking to the arrows and the other clutch, which means it's now going to be looking to war. So peace will be used as a tool in reserve, but it's actually war is going to be the first go-to, right? Whereas peace was the go-to before with war and reserve. So I think we're going to see a shift now where Babylon, as it were, it becomes the war, truly becomes the war machine that it always wanted to become. It's just been kind of coy about it, I think, in the past. And I think we're going to see a big power play here soon. Because Trump's talking about how Greenland and Canada and Panama Canal and all these things about talking about security measures. And so I think we're seeing a big shift over that. And they'll probably have an AI overseer. He's talking about building an Iron Dome all over the United States. Well, what do you think they're going to manage that with? AI, of course. How's that any different than Sky? So while that's happening above us, we're going to have this mRNA anti-cancer nightmare stuff happening here with us, and robot dogs and all that crap. So yeah, I know people get tired of the black pilling and stuff, but I mean, if all this stuff really did happen or does happen, I guess we got to face reality too. We can't just stick our head in the sand and pretend like this stuff's not happening around us.
Yeah.
Because
really quick, just wanted
to we're in a David Lynch movie, Chris.
Yeah. Really quick, I just wanted to give a shout out to Symbolic Studies. Mario's in the chat right now. And
oh man, what's up, Mario?
Later on in my segment over Twin Peaks, I'm going to be talking about Jacob's Ladder, which anytime I think of ladders and pillars, I always think of Mario now and his work. So yeah, just wanted to shout out Mario. Such a
for real
amazing.
In fact,
research.
I'm finished with my segment. I think if you want to go ahead and begin yours.
Yeah. Let's do our mid-show break, and then we'll get into my stuff. But yeah, definitely stick around or watch our playback of this episode if you want to get more into the David Lynch, everyone who is watching right now. So yeah, let's do our mid-show break, and then we'll come back in a few, like 60 seconds, and do our David Lynch segment, which is gonna be awesome. I'm really excited about this. He's one of my favorite directors. Welcome back to the King and Branch Show, Episode 1, Donald Trump and David Lynch. We are now in the King segment of the show, and like I said at the start and before the break, we're going to be going over David Lynch. Normally in my segment, I'm going to be doing like a particular movie or a in particular myth or something a bit more targeted and zeroed in on a main point and topic. But this one I'm going to be a bit more scope out and go over a director, and that's David Lynch, like I said. And the reason for that is because he just January 16th, he passed away at age 78. And so which is going to be kind of a memorial celebration of life of someone who's impacted art and cinema and the culture in a very profound way. Even his the term Lynchian as not just an aesthetic, but as a art style or trope, has inspired people and artists from across mediums, including myself. You've noticed, I'm sure, when you're watching our intro for Kino Cups, that the intro kind of has a pseudo Twin Peaks kind of dark Americana small town kind of vibe to it, and that's kind of on purpose. Even the music that I play, I try to do more of a darker kind of lounge jazz vibe, and that is going in reference to Twin Peaks, of course. But let's get into it here, and we can oh, there's a visual aid of Donald Trump. Yeah, so oh yeah, yeah. If you want to go to the other Marilyn Monroe one, yeah. Okay. So, first of all, David Lynch, he's mostly known for his directorial work from Blue Velvet to The Elephant Man, Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive, and of course Twin Peaks. And so I'm gonna kind of be focusing in on Twin Peaks and how impactful just that show alone was, and kind of hit it around everything else going forward. So okay, looks like the branch lost his signal, but he'll be back in a second. I'm gonna keep on going on. Oh, there he is. Awesome. He's his thing is loading. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna be going over all of David, like a kind of overview of David Lynch, but kind of focusing in on Twin Peaks a little bit more than everything else. And so to start off here, the origin story of Twin Peaks was David Lynch had got a deal with another guy named Mark Frost, who was the co-creator of Twin Peaks, and essentially they was tasked to make a film called Goddess, and it was going to be a biopic over Marilyn Monroe. And thank you, Brant. Here we go. Here we go. So yeah, it's so they, yeah, there should be the other Marilyn Monroe article that I that we have pulled up that ties her into Twin Peaks. Sorry for the technical difficulty, guys. Yeah, that one. We had our papers out of order here in the newsstand, apparently. Probably my bad. Anyways, yeah. So David Lynch and Mark Frost are put together and are told to work on this project that was going to be called Goddess. And it was all going to be about Marilyn Monroe. And previously, another biographical film that David Lynch had worked on was Elephant Man, which was a Archie biopic over the guy who was we named Elephant Man disease off of, and so they're tasking them to make this Marilyn Monroe biographic film, and they find, and I quote the article here, that David Lynch and Mark Frost find a synchronistic way to work together. So they was really meshing well, right? And they was really meshing well. David Lynch and Mark Frost, and they really poured their heart out and wanted to expand the narrative of Marilyn Monroe's life and get into more of the conspiracy, the darker side, the realness of everything that was going on around her in her life, instead of this more average, one could say, biographical story of her life. And once they got to a script that they both liked, they gave it to the studio, and their producers hated it. They didn't want it to be artsy. They didn't want to focus on the conspiracy around her death and all this stuff. They just wanted more of a traditional biographical film, it seems like. So that project never got off the ground. But David Lynch and Mark Frost was still inspired by what they was tapping into with Marylin's story. So they reworked the whole premise into Twin Peaks and the story of Laura Palmer, which is our main character of Twin Peaks, and her life and her unfortunate death that kicks off the events of the series, and so they kind of reskinned, repurposed all of that. So that's why Twin Peaks is essentially all about and was inspired by Marilyn Monroe and the conspiracy and everything around her life and tragic death. And that's very, the whole Marilyn Monroe and her death is a very interesting thing. That's when we get into things like Hollywood Babylon, and this idea of like the dark underbelly of Hollywood that we see in things like Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, and another film we've talked about on this channel, Society, um, and that whole kind of the whole dark elite of it all. And that's something that Lynch was really he liked to do, was he would get the mundane, the whole kind of definition of what we see as Lynchian is these more artistic views of how Lynch would frame a shot or paint a picture or do a sculpture. Yeah, it's more artistic and abstract. But all the other thing that kind of makes it Lynchian is his take on the mundane and using the average American dream, day-to-day life of the American people, and showing the dark underbelly of something else from outside, and it's usually some type of one could say a demonic force or some type of evil presence seeping in and altering this picturesque image of what we see in the media and these American epics that we tell. So you see that in things in with Twin Peaks, and that was really his fascination, was showing this that darker side come in, and so that obviously shows why he was looking at Marilyn Monroe and the tragedy of everything that she was going into, leading up to her unfortunate death. And for instance, Marilyn Monroe was the reason why Playboy existed. She took some scandally photos early in her career before she became famous, and those pictures found their way to Hugh Hefner, who paid for the right to those pictures around the same time that she was becoming famous in the cultural zeitgeist of the in the golden age of cinema, with all her, more prominent roles in film. And he used those pictures that he got of her, and printed his first Playboy. And so she was the first, um, playhouse bunny kind of figures. That whole archetype that we have, idea, trope of the bunnies, that all kind of started with those risque pictures that Hefner got of Marilyn, which we see that paralleled in Twin Peaks with the dicey pictures of Laura Palmer. Another parallel that we see is Laura Palmer's diary, and what she was writing in her diary days leading up to her death in the series, becomes a center point of the whole mystery, right? And that is a very similar thing that happened with Marilyn Monroe. There was the mystery of her diaries and what she was writing in her diary. There is actually there's many books on the topic of Marilyn Monroe's death and everything in her diary. But there's one in particular I wanted to shout out, and that is The Diary of Secrets, UFO Conspiracies, and the Mysterious Death of Marilyn Monroe by Nick Redfern. So you have all this, and even Hefner, who had never met Marilyn Monroe in his life, was so obsessed with her, as many people in Hollywood seem to have been at the time. And since then, she's been the muse for many people. Hefner was quoted to say that I'm a believer of things all symbolic, Hefner told a newspaper. And that's why he, and this is a conversation about why he wanted to be buried in the crypt next to Marilyn Monroe. And so he says, I'm a believer of all things symbolic, Hefner told the newspaper. Spending eternity next to Marilyn is too sweet to pass up. And he spent a bunch of money to make sure he acquired that. And he's not the only one that was fascinated in wanting to be buried by next to Marilyn Monroe. Another person who I don't have his first name, but his last name is Poncher. He told his widow, Eliza, I believe, Elsie, or Elijah, recounts that her husband last requested to LA Times, he said, if I croak, if you don't put me upside down over Marilyn Monroe, I'll haunt you for the rest of my life. And that's what he did. He got buried on the crypt above Marilyn Monroe, but they placed his body upside down. So it seems to have this sexual condemnation. And on top of the parallels between Laura Palmer of Twin Peaks and Marilyn Monroe, she knew the town's secrets, just like Marilyn Monroe, allegedly had secrets from JFK and the CIA and everything, that she wanted to possibly expose, but she was also had connections to UFO and like the whole UFO and alien contactee culture and with the CIA and everything, which we see that shown in Twin Peaks with the owl symbolism, and the owls aren't owls in Twin Peaks, and that gets tied into the whole Laura Palmer of it all, just like it is in the mystery around Marilyn Monroe, and also Laura Palmer was in Twin Peaks was addicted to drugs, just like Marilyn Monroe was. A fascinating book. Marilyn Monroe's tragic deal with drugs is a book called Dr. Feelgood, The Shocking Story of the Doctor Who May Have Changed History by Treating and Drugging JFK, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis, and other prominent figures. It's a very fascinating book. If you're around these esoteric fringe groups, you might heard that the whole idea of everything's placenta or placenta casserole, placenta meth, or even adrenochrome. That all kind of ties into what this Dr. Feelgood was doing, and all the songs, rock songs about Dr. Feelgood and everything. So you have that as well. So we have all of this that Lynch was withdrawing from with Twin Peaks, and even his esoteric symbolism in Twin Peaks he had because of in the show there's the Freemason Lodge that's in the show, and you have the symbols like the curtain and the black and white checkered tile floors, and the white pale horse, and Jacob's ladder, and this whole that's why Twin Peaks you start getting into like this behind the veil mystic the mystic mysteries and spirituality and things like that, and all these esoteric ideas and symbols. And David Lynch himself was a very interesting figure. He kind of lived like a monk. He just wanted to make art. He was constantly painting or sculpting or making a short film or something. So he didn't want to put energy toward other things. He had impactful relationships, but his main focus wasn't really relationships. His idea was if they came along, then they would come along. But he was a simple man. He ate the same meals every day, so he didn't have to think about it. And he also just like simple things, like he liked his coffee and he liked his cigarettes. So he lived much like a hermit, much like a pseudo Western kind of hermit, or a monk or something. He kind of had this kind of rigorous routine in his life, just so he could have as much free time as possible to create art. No, on top of not only does he mess with free Masonic symbols and these esoteric ideas through his art in things like Twin Peaks. He also has been quoted to say one of his biggest inspirations in life was The Wizard of Oz. There's even a documentary called Lynch / Oz, which is all about how the Wizard of Oz kind of is a through line of inspiration through all his projects. Another documentary over David Lynch is David Lynch's The Art Life, which he always said that his life was his art project, right? He said he lived the art life. And even Twin Peaks, getting to the whole like Lynchian idea of what does that term Lynchian mean? It being like abstract, but also having these more esoteric symbols, and also blending the surrealness of mundane life and the Americana mythos. What was interesting about Twin Peaks at the time, especially, and the Lynchian aesthetic, was there wasn't anything like Twin Peaks before it, where there was something that was on regular TV that seemed to bring in these more cinematic things that you see only on the silver screen, only on the, in the theater. And so combining Twin Peaks, he combined like daytime soap opera with silver screen horror like tropes. Blending these big and small screen genres, which influenced television going forward. Because from that, now you see, when we think of television now, we have these ideas of shows that want to be cinematic. You have shows like The X-Files, Lost, to name a few. And even in the modern streaming era, you have things like Stranger Things and the OA, Severance, even the branch earlier mentioned Mr. Robot. All of that stuff of having this more cinematic, theatrical kind of trying to fit itself within a smaller screen structure, that kind of blending of the two mediums. Because TV shows and movies are, even though they're both storytelling in the visual and audio medium, you approach them in two separate ways, and they didn't really blend prior to what David Lynch did with Twin Peaks, and that kicked off that whole thing that we still get to this day. David Lynch had a cameo in the film The Fablesman, which was a biopic about Steven Spielberg's life, made by Steven Spielberg. And he got advice from the director, Tom Ford, I believe it was. Tom Ford. And in the movie The Fablesman, David Lynch plays, he cameos as Tom Ford, and he gives a young Steven Spielberg the advice of, which I think it's good advice for any creative artist. He points to a painting that has a cowboy riding on the horizon, and he points out, he asks him, "Where's the horizon?" And the young Steven Spielberg goes, it's on the bottom of the frame. And he goes, exactly. If your horizon is on the bottom of the frame, it's interesting. If it's on the top of the frame, it's interesting. If it's dead in the center, it's boring. And that's what David Lynch was doing with Twin Peaks, and what people like or Sam Ismail, who did Mr. Robot, or even Brett Merling, who did the OA. They are thinking of the story first, and only the tools of like the 3/4 role in all this as secondary things to enhance their storytelling. They are not just trying to get the job done to appease a corporate person or the audience. They're not just trying to make content. We see a lot of Hollywood and creators today where it's just everything center framed, mid shot, wide shot, close up, everything centered, perfectly symmetrical, and that's neat, but it's not interesting. You should think of what your story requires, and then let the technical side enhance it later on. And so we wouldn't have TV like it is today with the cinematic element if it wasn't for David Lynch. And even when he did a cameo in The Fablesman, David Lynch didn't get paid money for it. He just got paid Cheetos. He just asked to be fed Cheetos, just because he wanted Cheetos. So yeah, David Lynch, he also would inspire kids shows like Erie, Indiana, and Gravity Falls. And one of the last things I'll finish on to see how eccentric he was David Lynch, to promote his film Inland Empire. He didn't do advertising. He just went to the Hollywood Boulevard and sat in a chair with a sign that says "For your consideration," like the Oscars for your consideration, and then had a cow with him, and everyone which is where I got the thumbnail here with him with his cow, and that's how he that was for promotion, and also to try to get attention for the Oscars. And so he was a very interesting and eccentric guy who was highly impactful in his life for everyone, from Hollywood to people who watch his films, to any kind of artists. I'll leave you guys with a quote of his. He says, David Lynch once said, "Don't focus on the donut hole. Focus on the donut. Focus on the donut, not the donut hole." So that's something interesting. That even though all his films have this darker underbelly, he was always looking for the light. And he's a very peculiar guy who impacted everyone, to even myself. So we have to admire his dedication to his art and his life and his legacy that he's left behind. So yeah, there is that. Thank you everyone for watching. We are running a bit long, but that's okay. We're going through technical difficulties and everything. This is our first episode. After all, thank you, the branch, for being here as well.
Of course.
Is there any final thoughts you wanted to give before we sign off here?
Did you talk about like why you chose the thumbnail?
Yeah, the cow. Yeah, he used it
Well,
as
I don't mean
promotion.
specifically for. I mean, you chose animals for both, is what I
Oh
was
yeah.
meaning.
So
Can you
the
maybe
story
explain
behind
that
the
real quick?
thumbnail was I was looking for thumbnail or images of Donald Trump and David Lynch to add to my thumbnail template I created for this series. And uh, I wanted a younger picture of Donald Trump from like the 80s to, since he's kind of, he kind of embodies that 80s Americana CEO kind of archetype. So I kind of wanted to pull that out. Um, and so I was looking at a bunch of images of young Donald Trump, and I found this one here of him holding the dove, I believe it is, and I go, oh,
Yeah.
it's so captivating. It really drew me in, and my brain connected it to, oh yeah, there was that story and that picture of David Lynch on the side of Hollywood Boulevard with his cow. And so I was like, those would go together because there's both these two men that we're talking about with animals. And so I used both of them, and I feel like it uh it got the job done.
Yeah, I thought it was a good selection. And yeah, apologize for the technical issues. I did get a
Uh,
new computer recently, so hopefully it'll pan out. But I guess that's what we get when we dove right in
yeah,
without
yeah,
technical testing.
yeah.
That was a Dove joke.
Though writing, yeah, yeah. I know you probably didn't hear all of what I said because of you was kept on dropping your connection. But is there anything that you wanted to contribute to my segment before uh, we wrap
Well,
up?
just that I've never watched Twin Peaks, and so hearing you talk so much about it um, has made me maybe try to find it. I mean, can you maybe tell us where to find it? Do you know where anybody can watch it? I
Yeah, I
think it was
believe.
on one of the streaming services.
Yeah, I believe it's streaming on. I think it's Paramount. It could be Max, but I'm pretty sure it's Paramount. Um, or it could be Hulu. Who knows? I could be totally wrong. I haven't pulled it up in front of me. But I do know at the moment you can stream it for free on the free streaming service Pluto. You have like free streaming services like Tubi and Pluto. Um, and Pluto right now, it has Twin Peaks streaming. But of course, as someone who um, supports physical media, um, I would um, suggest, if you can, please, uh, if you have the option to buy it in physical form, anyone who's listening, please buy the box set of Twin Peaks. Um, And of course, you know, it something that I kind of only skimmed over. I'll say really quick here is David Lynch and the Lynchian kind of way of creating film and art. It's so it's so kind of art artsy fartsy in a way where it's all very subliminal, very esoteric. Uh, in a way, so it's not as palatable to the everyday Janes and Does who just want to have something on TV as they're eating dinner or scrolling on their phones and whatnot. There's there's a bit more of attentiveness that you have to know uh, going into it.
So it's not something good to have in the background. It's something you need to be kind of actively watching.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of reminds me of the OA in that way, or maybe Mr. Robot. It's like the story's kind of slow, maybe, or there's a lot of things you could miss if you're not paying attention. Maybe sounds like it has good rewatch value potentially as well. Like seeing things you didn't notice the first time.
Yeah, his layering of symbols and everything is interesting, but also it's just there's something, since he focuses on the mundane, like as part of his artistic vision. There's something very enamoring and very cozy and wholesome when you're thinking of like when you're seeing he's depicting these like small American towns and everything. So it's like a cozy watch, but then there was this lingering thing of like something dark's about to happen, something evil's around every corner. Something's a bit off, something's a bit uncanny in this cozy little town. He does that so well that it makes it for an entertaining watch, because it once you get into that mode of watching it captivates you for sure.
Well, perhaps it was fitting after all to pair Lynch with Trump, because on the surface, everything does seem fine. Everything does feel cozy, dare I say. If you're a Pepe fan, you might get that one. So yeah, but what's the dark MAGA element kind of hangs over the town, right? It's like,
Yeah.
What storm is waiting for us? What was the storm he was talking about? Like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Just remember, guys, when it rains, you can always stand under Umbrella Corporation's umbrella.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for watching. And we'll be back with episode 2 with brand new topics in our King and Branch segments, and we'll be always evolving to try to prevent any future technical difficulties and whatnot. So it may take us a time or two to kind of iron out all the kinks, but we'll just return stronger and stronger every time. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time.